What's up, humans? Welcome to another episode of Shots from the Winchester podcast, brought to you by Greencastle Consulting, your nation's premier strategy execution firm. I'm your host, Al Green, and today we got a special one for you because we got Del Roll here, we got John Fical, and we're going to be talking to Tim, or TR Hendricks. Let me kick it off to Del first because we got a limited time with John right now.
Hey, so this is another special one, really is. Tim, or TR, is a huge emerging talent. It's a pleasure to finally connect with him face to face. Hopefully we'll be doing that at Thriller Fest in a couple months.
Absolutely.
But even more special is connecting a GACer, somebody who works for Greencastle Consulting, who just so happens to have personal connection to TR. So we're going to let John do the intro and tell us a little bit about Tim. And then I believe John's got some other stuff he's got to do. And we'll get on with this. So over to you, John.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Tim, first time, long time no see. Super happy to see you here.
Great to see you, my friend. This is amazing.
Yeah, small world.
So small.
So for the viewers who are watching right now, a little background on Tim. So Tim and I went to the same commissioning source at Hofstra University. He's also a member of the military fraternity Pershing Rifles. Beyond that, he's a commissioned Army officer in the armor branch with branch detail to military intelligence, if I have that right. And now esteemed author of the Instructor, and now upcoming, I believe in April, The Infiltrator.
That is correct. Yep, April 23rd.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's wild. I didn't know what Hofstra stories you were going to toss out there, and so I was, going to look to Al to hit the mute button real quick if we went into certain territory.
We're keeping it clean.
College days, or kind of what happens college days in college. So
college.
Well, yeah, exactly. So yeah, but awesome to see John. Thank you guys so much for having me on, and Del connecting. Seeing face to face, but we've been going back and forth on the Twitter sphere and all that stuff lately. In the author circles. So seeing old friend, online friend, new friend now. It's awesome. So I really appreciate you guys having me on, Greencastle having me on, and yeah, let's roll. Let's do it.
Yeah,
awesome. So hey, thanks, John. If you got a bolt, totally understand. But let's dive into Tim, or TR, and his background. As John mentioned, this is Tim's debut. The Instructor came out last year.
Also in paperwork. Also in paperback.
Also in paperback. Fantastic. And it's gritty, it's nuanced, it's realistic. The character development it's the sort of thing that leads you coming back for more. It's how you establish a series. Because at the end of the day, who remembers the plot, really? It's the characters that touch something in you that you love, that you connect with. And Tim, for starting out as an armor guy, you have done a remarkable job of learning how to write.
It's amazing that we can even put words together, right? Normally it's a big tank, go there, and that's it.
Sorry,
No.
I had to go there.
all fun and games, and I love it. I love the ribbing. Brings me back to the days. I love those infantry guys because they were always asking me to turn my engine on so they could get warm. So they want to sneak behind, and they say, "Sir, it's okay. I'm a little chilly."
Absolutely true.
Infantry, right?
Yeah. Truth, brother.
Go get your whoopee, and I'll turn on the vents for you.
Absolutely. Hey, so Tim, tell us about your journey, because Greencastle Consulting is all about uplifting and showing the stories of veterans who had kind of broken down barriers and gotten out into the world and made something of themselves. So tell us about your story, man.
Yeah. So like John said, went and got commissioned in 2003, and I served 5 years active duty, 2 deployments to Iraqi freedom, both in Baghdad. And I gotten married kind of towards the tail end of that time. My wife at the time, we wanted to start a family. So we made a decision to get out, op tempo being what it was. Had a couple of close calls. Those weren't too great. And I said, you know what? I want to see what else life has to offer. And in a nutshell, the transition was hard. It was really, really difficult. Some of it was timing. Some of it was circumstances. I got a really great job with a former fellow platoon leader that I served with my first tour in wind energy development. And that was my first job out of the military. I was a project leader. I was doing windmill turbines in upstate New York, right off the Great Lakes. The president at the time was touting clean energy. So I was like, shoot, I'm set. This is great. And that was 2008. And I think maybe 4 months after getting out, the housing bubble burst and we went into that huge recession.
Yeah.
And I had my wife was like 6 weeks pregnant. We had just moved from Long Island to Buffalo because I had been commuting every week from Long Island to Buffalo to my project site. Wow. And so we made the decision because I was like, that was part of getting out of the Army. It was like, we want to see more of each other, not less, Right. So we made the decision to move up to the project site. And then the housing bubble burst and kind of last in, first out thing. So I was laid off right away, and so we had to break our lease, kind of come back to Long Island with our tail between our legs, move into our parents' house for a while. And just so happened that when all of that bad luck was going on, it was about the 12 to 18 month point of my last deployment. So all the PTSD symptoms started coming out, and I was diagnosed with that, suffering through a lot of different symptoms, because if anybody knows about PTSD, it's a broad spectrum. There's a lot that goes under that umbrella. And that touched off a very, very difficult time, a decades long struggle of having to go through therapy constantly and go through, alcohol abuse and rehabilitation programs and, going on, trying medications, and then medications made me worse than before I was on them. Yeah. So I went off of them and then resisted going on another one because of how bad of an experience the first one was. And all throughout that kind of space, the common thread that I had was I was constantly writing. That was like kind of the one thing that kept me going. And it was a very early on, a very therapeutic process because my most prominent symptom that I was having was these like horrific, highly detailed, elongated nightmares. They would go on for like hours. It was like night terrors, and I would wake up just screaming or crying or soaked through sweat, or had my wife at the time in a chokehold one time. Like just not good stuff. And then you try and go to work through that, and you're just you're a mess. You're a hot mess. And I found that if I was writing those nightmares down on paper, there was a catharsis to it. I was expunging the nightmare and getting it out onto paper. And if it was really bad, I would like print them out and stuff the paper into a desk drawer. And it was like symbolic of me stowing it away for the day. If it was really bad, I would shred that bitch. I would put it through the shredder and just like, okay, I destroyed it. Which was all good, but it was really like, the Band-Aid on the sucking chest wound. It was treating the symptoms, not the underlying disease, if you will, not the source. It took me a very, very long time and a lot of work, and kind of hitting a low point before essentially making that breakthrough into like the positivity and taking and having the outlook to say, okay, yeah, some bad shit's happened, and I got a raw deal. So does everybody in life at one point or another. But how can I like flip the script? How can I take that negativity and flip it into a positive? And it just so happened that my writing the manuscript from the instructor kind of coincided with that time frame. And so the catharsis that I was having just from a therapeutic sense of writing my nightmares down suddenly translated into Derek as the character, or one facet of Derek as the character. And I could pour that catharsis and those experiences into him. And that was, in a way, one kind of small way of my flipping the script is, okay, I have a platform here. I have a book deal. I know for a fact that at least this one book is going to be published. This one book is going to make it on the shelf. So why not use that, not only to achieve the goal of writing a book and to write something entertaining that people are going to enjoy, but kind of illustrate things and say, wow, this is kind of what veterans go through on firsthand experience. And didn't realize it was I get that a lot of time. I didn't realize that PTSD was so big. I thought you guys were just always angry. I'm like, well, I'm angry that you asked me that. I'm like, no, I'm just kidding. like, no, it's like, no, there's a lot that goes on. You're angry, you're crying, you're, lost, you're numb, so I thought, I almost felt like a responsibility to kind of use what I had learned and pass it on. And I still do that to this day, where, people will reach out through my DMs or something and be like, hey, wow, that I really connected to your book, or I connected to your character, and I haven't talked about this stuff in a long time. I'm like, it's okay. Go ahead, get it out, go talk, go seek the resources that are available to you. Because too many of us have, I guess, suffered in silence for too long. And my whole point is, don't do that. Don't wait until you're abusing alcohol and suicidal and your marriage is broken up and all those ramifications. Like, so many of us have come before you. I call it like navigating the minefield. Like, so many people have cleared the path through the minefield before. Don't go venturing off on your own to try and figure it out, because you're going to step on a landmine. Come through the path that we've cleared, for those of us that have cleared it ahead of time. So that's kind of my ramble there of the entire thing. I tried to weave it all in there, but yeah,
that's a great breakdown, because like a lot of what we talk about on this podcast, especially, is there's so many more veterans than there has ever been in the United States right now. And it's a service that we provide as veterans ourselves, to be able to like recognize and lend a hand out to people, let them know, hey, you got other people here that can support you, and that there is sunshine on the other side of that valley of shadows that you're going through. So thank you so much for breaking that down, and especially in the way that that you coped with it. Coping mechanisms are very very useful as well. Writing down your nightmares, writing down those things, and then having a physical ability to like do something like shred it or put it something. It takes it out of your head, and it puts it into a reality that you can control in a way, even though it feels like it's like everything's falling apart. So definitely thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. That's part of why I love doing these podcasts and speaking about that is to keep the message going, keep advocating, and say, like, just reach out to somebody. You just, even if it's me and you're a complete stranger, you're living in Tacoma, Washington, but you hear this podcast, like, I got to talk to somebody. Like, okay, reach out to somebody, reach out and be like, all right, cool, I hear you. Let's get you connected to the people that can sustain that, and that's, I think that's the best thing for all of us, I mean, just because we're not in uniform anymore doesn't mean we don't watch each other's backs.
Right.
Absolutely. For the audience out there, and for those who maybe haven't served in uniform, or they have, but they haven't experienced PTSD or PTS even, or just folks that are just like want to know more about Tim's book. Here's what I would tell you. All of what Tim just talked about is absolutely in here. But, and it kind of reminds me of the way Nick Petrie, for example, writes or deals with that component of Peter Ash, his protagonist.
For sure.
It's a layer of the character.
Right.
It's not the character. It's a layer of who that individual is.
Yes, I know that's a great point, though. I think I appreciate you pointing that out, because I didn't write a PTSD textbook, right? Like, this isn't a psychological manual. Like, no, it's a entertaining book. It's action and adventure and intrigue and espionage and all that great stuff that you love in the thriller space. But the more layers you have to that character, the more people can identify with it, so it's like, oh, okay, Derek's a baseball fan, cool, I'm a baseball fan, and Derek likes the outdoors, I love the outdoors, I love rubbing twigs together and try and make them burn, but like for the veteran, so you've got, okay, baseball fans, I've got he's a runner and a gunner, so I've got the action fans, and and for the veterans, like, oh wow, this guy knows what he's talking about, this guy really went into detail and shared some things. And so it brings kind of what you said in your intro. It's like, it's all about the characters that you remember, and it brings those characters to life to have those layers incorporated into them, but don't think you're reading the DSM-4 or whatever it's called. It's not that. It's a novel. It's a story. It's really good. Yeah.
No, and again, for the readers who haven't had the opportunity to pick this up, you don't know what you're missing. There's just so much in here that, there's layers of authenticity to not only the character development, who you're going to come to love, but how he, and these are the things that really, touched at my heartstrings, was his interactions with his son.
Yeah.
The need for him to maintain that relationship with his son. He's estranged from his wife, and I can't remember if he's simply estranged or he's pending divorce, but there's just real beautiful interactions there. When he talks about the things that go on in the course of the story, and we don't want to give it all away, but it's like, I can feel like I'm back in SEER school yet again. And it's like, it's right there, it's tangible, and it's so well written. And even the tradecraft from the source, or the espionage, if you will, component of this story, so well done. And that's one of the things I want to highlight to people, is there's something special about when you read something that's crafted by a former practitioner. Mm-hmm. You see it in people like David McCluskey and and Brad Taylor. I mean,
sure.
When folks who used to do this for a living write it, and they're good writers. Mm-hmm. Key component. But there's something special about it. And you know what? Tim brings all of that in this book. And if you haven't read it, you're missing out. You really need to jump on that.
Yeah, thanks. That's awesome. I love that, especially coming from individuals like yourselves that have served at kind of like a higher threshold of expertise than just the tanker who's just the straight conventional forces. Like it's pretty cool driving around an M1A2. I'm not going to lie, but like when you mention McCluskey and I.S. Berry, who especially Ilana, who I've met and become good friends with, it's like, these are CIA case officers and operations officers, and I'm talking with special ops guys here and everything, and I'm like, we used to barbecue on the back of our tank, like that they're like it's it's not exactly apples to apples, if you know what I mean. But I do a lot of research. I do a lot of interviews with primary sources. Authenticity is the most critical component, or one of the most critical components to my writing, because to me, the worst thing that I can ever have is a reader who is in the know roll his eyes and be like, that would never happen, or that's bullshit, or oh, he got that wrong. And there's gonna be a little bit about that. A good friend of mine, his name's Jack Stewart. His book just came out, Unknown Rider, and his second book, Outlaw, just came out. He's a former Top Gun instructor from the Navy fighter pilot.
Yeah.
He read an early iteration of The Infiltrator, my sequel, was gracious enough to do that. And he wrote back and he's like, hey, this is great, but your close air support 9 line was a little off. And I was like, well, I never actually called in, a close air support 9 line. And also I'm Army, and I'm reconstructing this 9 line from the Marine Corps field manual, right? So I'm like, if you don't mind, help me tweak it a little bit. And we went through that exercise, because I was like, no. He's like, no, don't worry about it. It's fine. 99.9% of people out there aren't going to know that you should have said this when you said that. And I was like, yeah, but that other fraction of percentage is going to know. And I don't want them to go by it. So like, even things of like the tradecraft or SEER school, while a lot of it is based in fact, a lot of it is based in the research that I've done, because I pride myself on that. I really, really appreciate when guys in the know that have actually gone through SEER school say like, yeah, that was close, because I made some of that shit up, so like, and that's the beauty of fiction, right? The reasonable suspense of disbelief. So it's like, oh, okay, cool. Like, he didn't go through SEER school, and maybe that particular thing didn't specifically happen when I went through it. But could it have happened? Sure. Could the instructor have, bound me to a tree and left me there all night? Yeah. Why not? Sure. That could have happened,
I've done it to my kids,
What's that?
I said I've done it to my kids.
Yeah, exactly. It's just normal stuff, PT in the front yard while you're hosing them down. It's just, it's normal.
Kidding. Anyone
kidding.
I don't believe Dell's kidding.
Do not call CPS on
me. But you know why? You touch on something that we talked about before with other authors, and that is this community.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing when you leave the military, which is, it's more than a profession. It's more than a job. It's a part of who you are, and you're part of this community, part of this tribe. And, you leave that and maybe you move on to whatever. But like when you join in, when you enter into this passion, you find that the other authors are so welcoming, so giving of their time.
Yep.
Jack's a friend of mine as well, and he walked me through, because I asked him a question for kind of a project that I'm not sure where it's going to go, but how would a commercial airline pilot react to a SAM being fired at them?
Right.
And he walked me through the whole process, and like, there were things that, hell, I don't know.
Yeah.
Do. And he would pick up on things like, at one point I had the pilot wearing a knee board, because every pilot I've ever known had a knee board.
Right.
Commercial airline pilots don't have knee boards.
They don't have knee boards.
But the beauty is, it's that connection. It's that meeting all these talented artists who guide you through the process.
Yep.
So tell us about, how, you talked a little bit about how you came into this, but what is your process? Like, how do you sit down and craft these stories?
I guess I'm a self-admitted genre jumper. Like, I love writing all different types of stories. It's whatever the voices are saying, just that, whether it's fantasy, sci-fi, horror. If I got a story in my head, I like to put it down. I like to flush it out. It might not be anything good. It might not ever make it, but it's just the creativity is like the imagination's there. And when I take on a specific project, I usually like to do, at least at this juncture, I've got my overarching outline, beginning, middle, end, acts 1, 2, 3, and kind of the critical characters and plot devices and twists that are going to drive the entire story. And then when I have that like loose outline, just that quick kind of here's how we get from A to B, I dive in and I just start writing. I don't want to get too much into outlining because I feel like it stifles my creative process, So it's like I know where I want to go to, but let's see how we get there, and just kind of like start doing it. And if I get into a log jam, or if I know there's a particular point in the story in my head that I have to accomplish, like critical things with the plot in order to keep it focused and not go off onto tangents or anything, I'll break it down into like a more of a chapter outline. But it's the same thing. It's just on a miniaturized version where it's like, okay, here's the 4 things I have to accomplish in order to drive the story forward, develop the character. But I'm not writing out the entire thing in high detail. I'm just keeping those 4 points and then letting the creativity come through. So I'm like part planner, part pantser. I did get into an exercise this time around of writing like a 5-6 page synopsis, which I found with the current projects I'm working on. I've done it for 2 separate projects now, and I found that was a very educational thing for me, because like it really forced me to string the entire story together versus the old methodology where I would be like hit a hole, a plot hole, and I got to go like take a shower because that's where I do my best thinking, and figure out, well, maybe I could do this or maybe I could do that until that click happens. And I forced myself to do all that so that the clicks have already happened, and now it's just putting meat on the bone. But just kind of to that point is, even as a writer, even as a published author with, one book out, another book soon to be out, you're constantly evolving, you're constantly adapting and trying out new things, seeing what works, putting those tools in the toolbox, right? 10 years ago, I would have said writing a 6-page synopsis is stupid. It's a waste of time. Write the book, not the synopsis. Mm-hmm. Where I'm sitting here now, it was actually very beneficial because some of these stories I've had ruminating in my head since I was a kid playing with G.I. Joes in my bedroom. And other ones, the author, the publishing house, I'm with Tor Forge, or my agent, Barbara Powell of Word One Literary, they'll be like, well, what could you do something in the science fiction space, but like near future science fiction? I'm like, sure. So now I'm in like a position where, yeah, I'd love to. And I have a couple of ideas that are sitting on the shelf, but nothing that's fully flushed out, So I can't just be like, oh, okay, yeah, I've got that one story about the railgun, and I could use that one. That one's completely done. Now I find myself in a place where I need to do a little more prep work than I ever had to do before.
Awesome. And don't publishers like want, when you're under contract, don't they want like a synopsis for you to articulate, hey, this is what the story is?
Yeah, for sure. Especially if you're in a point where like where I am, where we're contemplating what my next book is going to be, so they want to see the complete end state, all the spoilers, all the twists, all the turns, because they want to know what they're getting themselves into before they buy a book.
Right, yeah.
And they want to know that you have something good to go, and it's not going to be like, oh, and then he woke up at the end, and you know, it was all a dream, and then like we paid all this money for that. Like, you kidding me? So yeah, that's more of like on the business side of things. Especially, they want to see the synopsis, and certainly when you're going through the query process to get an agent, they want to know too, like what they're. But those are much more condensed. That's like a page, maybe page and a half, because you're not going to get into. There's just not enough time in the publishing industry for agents and editors to be reading 7-page synopses. But once you actually have the deal, they're like, all right, flush this out a little. We want to see where you're going. And then they're like, this doesn't work right here. Go back to the drawing board. Or, this doesn't work right here. What about X? What about Y? You know, and that's where the collaborative piece comes in, which is why I wanted to go traditional my whole life, because I always wanted that kind of community effort going into making it the best possible story, the best possible book that I could have. Because if I was to self-publish, it'd be a dumpster fire. You know, it was just like my hat's off to the guys and gals that can do that, because all of like the work that has to go into that, like between not just writing the book and editing it, but like formatting it so it fits to Kindle and doing the cover art and everything. Like, golly. God bless. Go forth and do great things. But for me, I need the support structure. You know, I need the team. Yeah.
All right. We had a brief interlude. Our fellow Gecker, John, had to actually go do some real work. So, you know, Tim brought up a really, really interesting component that I think is helpful for people who are aspiring to be writers and authors. And frankly, I think it's also something that the reading public just doesn't understand. And what I mean by that is, of every 100 people that say they're going to write a book, maybe one actually finishes. Right. That's only the first obstacle. The next obstacle is finding an agent, getting published. And you look at those numbers, it's more like, and I've seen numbers ranging from 1 in 300 to 1 in 15,000. Quite literally, you have better odds of being struck by lightning while you're winning the lottery.
Right.
So, and people will say, well, you know, why don't you just self-publish? And you nailed it, Tim, in that if you go the route of self-publishing, and there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Not at all.
It's on you. Everything is on you, right? It is, you know, writing, editing, marketing, publicist. It's on you.
Yep.
So what has been your experience? And I'm assuming that you went to go the traditional route because it comes with a team.
Yep.
Got all these people that are helping you along the way. And it allows you to focus solely on being a storyteller. So could you maybe share with you know, the audience, what was that path for you? What was that like?
Well, the first part of it is that the perception versus the reality is two different things, where, I'm going to go traditional because I want this whole support team around me, and they're there and they do a phenomenal job. They work hard, but mine is not the only book in the shop. You know, I am not the only author in the stable, and there's only so much time and resources that can go around. So while, yes, as a traditionally published author, I have an editor assigned to me, there's, you know, in the ramp up to the releases, there's a marketing team and a publicity team and everything, but it's all going into the machine cranking along. And in that regard, as a debut author with your first or second book, where your name hasn't really been established yet, there's only so many resources that a publisher is going to dedicate towards you. because they don't know. They don't know what's going to happen. You know, once you start getting some sales data behind you, then things are like, oh, okay, like he's making money, so we can devote money towards expanding his reach and everything. So early on, while I have a phenomenal editor, Robert Davis, and I have the people at Tor Forge that are supporting me, a lot of it still, as a debut author, even when you're traditional, falls on you to do a lot of the legwork. And by legwork, I mean mostly your marketing and promotion. You know, that is where I think I found the most limited resource, and it makes sense. I don't begrudge that, because again, it's like you're an unknown variable. We're not going to throw a huge publicity campaign and huge dollars at you until we know that you're a proven commodity. And I get that. That's just business, right?
Sense, yeah.
So you have to really, if you want, I mean, plenty of traditionally published authors are like, no, I'm just too introverted. I can't be making TikTok videos. I can't be bothered with social media. And that's their choice too. I go the other way. I was already on social media to begin with. So I was familiar with it. I'm comfortable with it. And it's like, no, I want my book to succeed, you know? So if I have to put in extra effort on that front to prove that I'm a commodity and that my books can sell and that I have a good base and everything, then by golly, I'm going to go ahead and do it. You know, I'm going to churn out those Instagram posts, you know, so yeah, so it's a little bit of a give and take there, you know, which I think probably self-publishers, indie publishers, even small press publishers, the expectations of their authors are higher because there just isn't enough resources, aren't enough personnel to go around for everybody's book. So even when you're a traditional published author as a debut, as a brand new guy in the scene, you gotta, you know, put the work in. You know, that's where I said the perception is different from the reality. I actually thought, believe it or not, I actually thought that the way it works is me as an author, I'm sitting in my authorly chair writing, and I finish my 90 to 100,000 words, and I just turn it in, and I'm done, right? Like the editor is just going to revise it, and he's going to fix everything. He's going to make the plot holes go away, and then he's going to hand it over to a copy editor, and they're going to correct all of my bad spelling and the 10,000 commas that I just throw in at random because I don't know how commas work. And you know, like, and then there's an artist over here, and there's somebody booking my tour, and like I had this
Rockstar
fanciful idea that I'm tossing my Fabio hair back. Like I'm just the artiste here, you know, don't infringe on my creativity with your, you know, business nonsense. And I literally thought that's how it worked. And then they're like, okay, so we're going to turn it back to you. You know, we need your edits in like 30 days. I'm like, wait, what do you mean my edits? You mean I have to read my book again? You know, like, so that was a huge like wake up call. It's like, no, buddy, listen, you need to be marketing, you need to be contacting people, you need to be making relationships in the industry, you need to be making relationships in the influencer space with the bookstagram book talkers and bookstagrammers and all those people. Like, you got a lot of work to do, you know. It's not maybe if your name is Lee Child or Stephen King or, you know, Charlene Harris, you know, like maybe if you're at that level, yes, that's your reality. But you've also sold 30 million copies, you know.
Right. So, it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to compete with that.
Yeah, you know, yes, you're going to have a personal assistant bringing you a Diet Coke, and all you're going to do is write.
Yeah,
you're making the publisher millions upon millions of dollars.
That's where you got the Fabio hair.
I cannot say the same. Yes, they are tossing the Fabio hair back. So.
But I will say, in your defense, you're actually you're pretty good at it.
Well, thank you.
The messaging component, because you recently did a video that I want to say you either had it on Instagram or you had it on X, but it was a shout out to our mutual friend Adam Sykes.
Yeah.
And I'm about a little over halfway done with The Underhanded, which comes out
nice. Okay.
next month, and friggin' loved it. But I got to tell you, your endorsement of him, loved it.
I love self-deprecating humor. Like,
the best kind of.
I love to just like poke fun at myself and ham it up and just, kind of just be a schmuck out there. Like that's like my style. And I always get a little tentative because, like, Adam Sykes is like, this dude is legit, man. This dude's like, I don't know if you ever read his resume, but my goodness. And now here I am on TikTok making a video comparing like him and Captain America, and Adam Sykes makes Captain America look like a tattletale in the second grade. And I was like who does that? And then my trepidation with it is like, is Adam going to call me up and be like, dude, take that video down. What are you doing? Like, but more to your point, Del, of like, no, that's how the community is grateful, because he didn't know I was doing that video. He didn't know I was going to put that out to support him, and he loved it, so it's great. But yeah, I just let your person, like I was actually on I took a publicity course a little earlier today, and like a quick webinar. And to me, it was all about, what's your brand, what's your content, all that stuff is. And like, to me, my brand is just being me, like you're going to like me or you're not, you're going to like my writing or not, like I'm going to be a schmuck on my social media because it's my social media, like if you don't like it, don't follow me. And I don't care. Like,
right.
It's great. So, that's the beauty of social media, I guess, is, you can follow people that you like, follow people that you don't like because you want to yell at them into the ether. I mean, you want to argue with strangers about, politics. Like, sure, I guess. For me, I just want to sell books. I want to have fun. I think Instagram is my favorite platform because I'm like, I get to share a whole bunch of stuff. So like I'm mixing in the book stuff, but I'm also throwing like scenes from my favorite movie out there, or a recipe for chicken noodle soup, or watching my girls play softball, because I think readers in today's day and age, it's not the mystique of, like Ernest Hemingway somewhere in a cabin sipping a scotch and typing on his typewriter, and nobody knows who he is or what the mysticism is behind it. In today's day and age, they want to know what makes the author tick, right? Yeah. So you can't just bludgeon people over the head with, here's my book, buy my book, because they're going to tune out and they're not going to buy your book. And then you say, I can't, that guy's insufferable. All he ever does is market his book. So they want to, you want to pull the curtain back and see, the whole pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. That's exactly what they're asking for. Yeah. They want to see the man behind the curtain. They want to see what makes you and how you come up with the stories. So give the people what they want.
No, absolutely.
Social media, especially, like, I'm glad you put that up, because social media, especially like on Instagram, and I love Instagram too, is one of my favorite platforms right now that I utilize, besides YouTube. But it's, you are kind of showing your personality.
Exactly.
And that's, I think that authenticity is what people really like to grasp onto. And just like your favorite artist or musician or whatever it is, you learn a little bit more about them as you evolve into their art. And the more that you learn about that person or or people, whoever, whatever, the more of a fan you create.
Yeah.
And they'll buy your stuff no matter what. It's just like, oh wait, he's got another book out, buying it, like, because they know you, and I think that is something that helps with social media, is getting that personality out there, no matter what it is. Just being yourself, like you said, just being yourself is like the key. Like, I had my social media was a disaster for quite some time. And it wasn't until I finally decided I need to get rid of all these people on my Instagram that are just not filling me with anything but except for anxiety.
Right.
Get rid of all these people, move on to that, start following things that are actually like make sense to me, like that I want to see. Like, when I scroll my feed, I want to see science, I want to see art, I want to see writers, authors, I want to see those are things that I want to see, not all this other
all the noise. You got to curate. You got to curate your own algorithm.
Right.
You got to. You're only whatever is coming through your feed is going to be what you're liking and what you're doing. And
it's also on your head too, because that's what you're seeing. That's
100%. With the instructor. Like, when I kind of broke it down, like, all right, what's my author brand going to be, or what's my social media like theme going to be? And it's like, well, I got a couple different buckets here. I've got the readers, I've got the veterans, I've got the survival outdoors / preppers, and then men's health, guns and ammo, outdoor sports, kind of just like a general like dude bro feel kind of thing, because that generally my readership is more on that side. And so knowing that I have like those 4 buckets that my book can appeal to, I kind of gravitate my content towards that, so and people are like, oh, this guy's a survival expert. No, I'm not, but I do a lot of research, and there's videos on there of me trying to do my own bow drill, of me setting a snare trap in my backyard, with like my puppy running around. I'm trying to like not get the puppy in the trap, because the wife at the time would have murdered me. But like, it's kind of cool, because it's like a real survivalist. Like, oh, well, at least he's doing his homework. At least he's giving it a shot, So that's where I find social media can be very advantageous to writers and authors, and it factors, I hate to say it, but it factors in like more. It depends on your publisher, but it's a consideration when they're offering you a book deal, a publisher, to say like, okay, what's his online presence like? Does he have a reach? Does he have an audience? Does he say racist shit? He might write the greatest book ever, and he wrote a children's book, but he's actually, doing some shady stuff and posting it online. Like, maybe we don't want this guy under our brand, So
it's a good way to vet people as well.
Yes, you definitely have to curate it, and there's a fine balance when you're mixing in your personal stuff. Like, I will share videos of like my girls and I did the tortilla challenge, which was a phenomenal, hysterical video, right? But I don't really favor putting a lot of videos of my daughters up, no, this is my feed, and this is my author feed. It's not, I don't want people having a detailed view into my personal life, but it's fun to give little glimpses of it, I think.
That's important.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point, because it is important, and your agent and publishers are going to look at that stuff. Like, there was an article I commented on and I reposted the other day. It was about artificial intelligence and how it's used in criminal activity. And then there was, and I thought, that's worth, noting for, the population, if you haven't noticed it, this is a real thing. We had talked about that about an hour ago.
Yeah.
But then there was one that came up today, which I almost posted, but I chose not to. And it was about the Department of Defense report on UAPs. Yeah. And I'm like, all right, I almost feel like I want to comment, like, okay, let me explain this for you. I don't know what the heck it is.
Right.
But I'm like, I don't want to touch that because I don't want to be, interpreted as being like a tin hat or a conspiracy guy. So I'm like, the heck with it. Not gonna touch.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's kind of like stay in your lane, right? Stay between the range fans, like.
Yeah.
I don't go venturing into discussions on thermodynamics because I don't know what thermodynamics are, so like
Yeah. Right.
so many keyboard warriors out there are like, oh, that's not true, and then you find out that like the person that they were arguing with has like multiple PhDs in the field and is like a Nobel Prize winner, and it's like, actually, so I like to stick with what I know. And I avoid politics and I avoid religion because those are the most polarizing things in the world.
Absolutely.
So let's just have fun with slapping each other in the face with tortillas and call it a day. And read great books,
Right.
Who doesn't want to be slapped in the face?
It doesn't have to be that hard, folks.
So I got like maybe one or two questions left, and I know we've been here for a while. I'm sure you got stuff to do, to include connecting with your daughters. But so you're a soldier, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And you made your protagonist a Marine.
I love this question.
What's the dealio?
What happened? Why did you go that way? So it's a funny kind of like twist of fate, and it seems like it's fate's way of like, twisting the knife into me, because I wrote Derek originally. When you look at Derek from his resume, from his service file, right? A lot of those things like duty stations and schoolhouses and deployments, they're based on an actual guy, a friend of mine, named Rob, who just so happened to also be retired Marine Force Recon Intel warrant officer, right? And we were working together in a security firm, and Rob was telling a story about how he almost got picked up for his own survival show, like Survivor Man or Bear Grylls and everything like that. But what they wanted him to do was kind of the concept was going to be like, here's an incident from my military career, and here's how the corresponding survival tactic got me out of it, right? Something to that effect. But it would have involved, they wanted, like the producers out in Hollywood wanted him to divulge top secret information or higher, SCI information, because they want ratings. And he's like, yeah, I don't want to go to jail. Like, and not only that, but like, I'm a man of integrity. I'm not going to just, fork over trade secrets to you that the U.S. government swore me to protect.
I'm shocked that somebody would do that in Hollywood.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. I mean, they're such upstanding people sometimes.
I know.
Wait, maybe edit that out, because I'm trying to get a film deal too.
Oh,
so
God.
I love all you out there. Hit up my agent.
They're the
best. But yeah, so like the to tie it into the question, he told me that story and it pissed me off, and I was like, all right, cool. Well, you know what we'll do? I'll write you a fictitious background. I'll write you a fictitious profile, and then you can pass that off to the Hollywood people, and it would be like based on a true story. Like, I'm not saying this was me, but it might have been me, and we'll just make shit up. We'll do fake stuff, and you'll have your show, and you'll have this fictitious story. So you're not breaking the law and you're not breaking your oath, and it'll be great. And it was a joke. It wasn't anything serious. It was like, yeah, sure, whatever. You went, yeah, you know what, Tim, you want to write a character and do a story and everything, like, go ahead, have fun. You have my blessing. It was great. And so I started writing this profile, but the profile then turned into like a short story. And then the short story turned like into this monstrosity where I was just foregoing all responsibilities and relationships to write this book. And it was a madman. And I was just writing and writing and writing. Next thing you know, I had the first manuscript for The Instructor. So that was part one of like, oh, it was based on this guy who's a Marine. So I made the character Marine, not ever thinking that it would become my first novel. The second part of it is the book is dedicated to my father, and my father is the only Marine in a family full of Army. And true to Marine Corps fashion, he tells us all that we're wrong, and he was the right one. So there's a fun family dynamic there. But yeah, but like I say Derek is broken down into three men. Derek is the blueprint of my friend Rob, who had kind of like the resume of what I wanted Derek to be. All of the good, admirable qualities that I put into Derek, I got from my father. And then all the horseshit, all the bad stuff, all the PTSD and everything was my contribution, was my outlet to him. And that's how those three personalities came together to form this Marine character. But man, did I paint myself into a corner, because like, you know, if I was writing as a soldier, even as a Green Beret, like it would have been a little easier. Yeah, because like there's a scene in the book where, and this isn't giving anything away, but there's a scene in the book where he walks into his father's bedroom and his father still makes his rack, you know, the way he did in basic training. And that took about 3 hours of research, because I had to make sure that the Marine Corps basic training folds their blankets the same number of inches that the Army does. Whereas if it was an Army character, I would have just known it, you know? So it's a unique challenge, but it's fun. I also kind of like the double edge where it's like actual Marines can say, well, he's not really Marine, so we'll give him a little leeway. Whereas like if I am a Marine, I should know my stuff a lot better, you know, kind of thing. So you know, gotcha. That's kind of how he came to be.
That's awesome.
That's really cool.
So yeah. Al, do you have any questions before
I'm just I'm fascinated with the way I'm a systems guy. I like hearing how people are doing their writing, the ideas to how they're doing things. I was fascinated going back when you said that you do a lot of your best thinking in the shower.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, because I feel like I do a lot of my best thinking while I'm walking or doing other things. If I go to the gym and I'm just zoning out doing cardio, it's a great opportunity to just like have my notes open and just like start like jotting down ideas. So the process for me is like really a big thing, because without hearing other people's processes, especially as artists and as writers, we just think we're crazy. We just think we're just like writing like
for sure,
you know, like all work, no play makes, you know,
Jack a dull boy. Yeah, exactly.
And so with that, it helps. It's really helpful for people to hear that process and to see like your character is not just based on just one person like yourself. It's based on multiple people. Right. And you created a personality based on those people, and that works. And sometimes maybe somebody might have been stuck right now thinking about how to build their character out, and maybe they just didn't think about, hey, you know what? Maybe there's more that I can contribute to this character personality-wise myself, or my friend actually is the perfect model for who this person is in my mind.
Right.
Maybe they didn't realize that. So again, thank you for that nugget.
Yeah, of course. You got to use the assets that are available to you in everyday life, and you have to be observant as a writer, because you never know what interaction you're going to have on a day-to-day basis where it might be like, oh, that's a cool little anecdote. Let me store that away for later, because that could get roped into some character development or some plot device or something. And the other thing to like all the aspiring writers out there that are constantly working is, and I used to give this lesson to my soldiers, but it's like, there's a million tools out there, right? But there's only your toolbox, and you have to decide which tools are worthy for you to take and put in, because one tool might work for somebody else, but it might not work for you. And you have to kind of cultivate what your own kit is going to look like. If you go online and start like researching, you know, how do I land a literary agent, you're going to find 10,000 different takes. 10 like, and all of it's contradictory. Like, it's like, you shouldn't be, you know, if you get a rejection letter, don't post it online that you got rejected, because it makes you seem like your writing isn't good. Okay, that makes sense. And then someone else will say like, no, you should put your rejection letter out there because it shows that you're willing to drive through and work towards your goal and everything. And it's all contradictory. It's all bullshit. So what you have to do is take all of those things that people are saying, even the stuff that I'm saying, you know, because what works for me doesn't work for everybody, but you have to make it your own. You can't just go on. There's no secret sauce. You can't go online and hit the button and be like, hey, how do I write a book? And get the plan. You gotta cultivate your style and what tools work for you in order to get there.
Yeah, that's a great balance too, because that works in a lot of aspects of life. That works.
Yeah, 100%.
Diets, for instance. Like, there's so many people. There's so much contradictory information out there. Vegetables are good for you. Just do meat.
Yeah,
you know, but everyone's different. Everyone's built different. DNA's different. And so you just have to take all this knowledge and just cultivate your own kind of thing that works for you based on what you know of yourself. You're the only one that knows you the best. So yeah, that's great advice.
That is sage advice, and we've had you now for like an hour and a half.
Doesn't feel like it. This has been awesome.
Well, this is going to be edited. You know, we had some technical issues. But before you go, there, you know, anyone who touches upon the espionage space, I like to ask them this closing question. I'm not saying that there's a right answer. I'm saying there are answers that are better than others.
Of course.
Who's your favorite Bond?
Ooh, that's a great question. You know who I really enjoyed? I like Daniel Craig. And it wasn't so much for, I mean, his depiction is awesome. I really think he was really, really good. But I liked the way his Bond movies were written, because it was a bit more of an origin story, especially like Casino Royale. Because he wasn't the infallible Bond that we saw in Connery, and especially like Pierce Brosnan. I thought he breathed. I don't know, whatever. That's why I have editors. Yeah. I thought he brought a fresh take to the Bond series when he was on, but it was like the guy might as well have been Superman. You know, he's diving off of dams into a plane, and it makes for great movies, television, whatever. It was, you know, GoldenEye is awesome. Yeah, but I like my characters to be a little more true to life, you know, and realistic. And so like when he's chasing after Eva Green at the end of the thing, or he gets poisoned, right? Like, well, Bond would never get poisoned. Like, no, he's just now a 00. So he's still learning his ways, you know. He's chasing after Eva Green at the end, and he, you know, and she's lying in the road, and he flips the car, and it goes into a million pieces. Like, oh wow, like Pierce Brosnan would have, like, you know, gone up on 2 tires and skirted around her or some nonsense like that, you know. So I like that aspect of Daniel Craig's Bond in that, you know, he could make mistakes, he could learn, he was still highly proficient in everything. Whether that is his depiction the writing, the directing, combination of all of it, probably. But that's where I leaned on that side of it.
Good stuff.
Awesome. Could not agree with you more. The narrative arc, besides the fact it was the most realistic Bond, I feel. He was the Bond during the duration of my time at the agency.
Yeah.
But there's also this beautiful narrative arc.
Yeah.
And there's like little things. And I was just thinking about this morning. There's this scene in Inspector where they're on the train and she mentions that she had been, she didn't like guns and this was why. That becomes the opening scene of No Time to Die.
Right.
It's just so well written.
Yeah, you're like you tie it together, and just little tidbits of like Eva Green on the train saying, "Oh, I'm going to guess you were an orphan." Right. And in that, and he doesn't acknowledge it, but like just that little hint, that little seed plant is like, wow, was James Bond an orphan? And that's where MI6 recruited him from? Like,
yeah.
And it makes sense because they're like, oh, yeah, disenfranchised youth with a chip on their shoulder who has something to prove that he belongs at, amongst the rich and elite. I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. But yet, true to Bond, he doesn't acknowledge it. He just says, it's an interesting theory, So like, I like that dynamic where you were getting a little bit more of that glance behind the curtain.
Without it being brutal.
And without Bond himself saying, you're absolutely right, I was an orphan. Because Bond wouldn't do that. He's an operator. He's a spy. He's gonna keep things close to the vest. So good stuff. That was a great question. I didn't know where you were going with that, but that was awesome.
All right. We are just about out of time. And before we say goodbye, I want to give another shout out to The Instructor. If you have not read it, you are yourself down. And his next book, The Infiltrator, comes out in a month in late April.
Yep, April 23rd.
Order yourself a copy now.
Outstanding.
All right, that's all for this week's podcast. Hey, thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys. It was great.
See you guys.
Appreciate it. All right.